They say a man truly dies when his name is forgotten, but some names refuse to fade. This is the story of Ken Saro-Wiwa, a teacher, writer, and freedom fighter who dared to speak when silence was safer. Welcome to Davphorizon, where we uncover the untold African history, stories of courage, resistance, and the price of justice. A man who stood against giants, a man who sacrificed everything, not for power, but for truth. In the lush wetlands of southern Nigeria lies the Niger Delta, a land rich in oil but poor in peace, a place where rivers shimmer with crude, not sunlight. Ken Saro-Wiwa was born there in 1941 in a small Ogoni village called Bori. He was brilliant, sharp-minded, outspoken, and passionate. By his 20s, he had become a university lecturer and later a successful businessman. But behind his smile was the pain of his people, the Ogoni, who lived on land flowing with oil but saw none of its blessings. When the Ogoni companies came, especially Shell, the promise was prosperity. What followed instead was pollution, disease, and despair. Fishermen could no longer fish, farmers could no longer farm. The air itself began to burn. And the government, silence. The companies, richer than ever. That's when Ken decided, someone must speak. Ken Saro-Wiwa was not a soldier. His weapon was his pen. He wrote plays, books, and television dramas. The most famous being Bassi and Company, a satirical show that made millions laugh. But think deeply about corruption and greed. But behind the humor, Ken's words carried fire. He began writing about injustice in the Niger Delta, the destruction of Ogoni land, and the hypocrisy of those in power. In 1990, he founded MOSOP, the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. MOSOP became more than an organization. It became a voice. Ken traveled from village to village, rallying his people with peaceful protests. He demanded environmental justice, fair compensation, and self-determination for the Ogoni. By 1993, the movement had grown powerful, so powerful that oil companies had to halt operations in Ogoni land. But that victory came with a price. The Nigerian military government, led by General Sani Abacha, saw Ken not as a hero, but as a threat. In 1994, violence erupted in Ogoni land. 4 local chiefs who opposed MOSOP were murdered, and the government blamed Ken Saro-Wiwa. Though there was no evidence, he was arrested alongside 8 other activists, the Ogoni 9. Their trial was a show controlled, corrupt and cruel. Witnesses were bribed, the verdict already written. Ken stood before the tribunal, unbroken. He looked his judge in the eyes and said, "I am a man of peace, of ideas. My crime, if any, is that I have spoken the truth." Even in chains, his voice thundered. Even facing death, his words were fearless. On November 10, 1995, the world watched in disbelief as Ken Saro-Wiwa and his 8 companions were executed by hanging. Their bodies were buried in unmarked graves. Ken Saro-Wiwa was a martyr, a symbol of resistance not just for Ogoni people, but for all Africans who suffer under the weight of exploitation. In death, his voice grew louder. International organizations began pushing for environmental reforms. Writers and activists across the world carried his message, and slowly, the truth he fought for began to surface. Years later, investigations revealed the extent of environmental devastation in Ogoni land. Rivers poisoned with benzene, farmlands dead, children growing up in toxic air. In 2009, Shell was forced to settle in court, paying millions to the Ogoni people. Not out of mercy, but because the world now knew the truth Ken died to tell. In 2011, the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, released a report confirming what Ken had shouted decades before, that the Ogoni land was one of the most polluted regions on earth. His fight had become a prophecy fulfilled. Today, schools bear his name, streets, awards, and global movements honor him. But more importantly, his words live on in the hearts of those who still fight for justice. Ken Saro-Wiwa once said, "The environment is man's first right. Without a safe environment, we cannot talk about human rights. He died for that truth, so that others might breathe cleaner air, drink purer water, and live with dignity. He was hanged by men who feared his voice, but his voice still echoes through the oil fields, through the forest, through every soul that refuses to be silent. This is Davphorizon, where we remember the ones who stood when others bowed. Ken Saro-Wiwa didn't just die for the Ogoni people, he died for Africa. He died for truth. Because sometimes, one man's courage can light a fire no empire can extinguish. If this is your first time coming across my video, do wait to hit the subscription button, follow, like, comment and share for more untold African histories. See you in my next video. Thank you.